come back and do it again the next day. So in terms of the weight, this is controversial. You know, Sam, you've got professionals, you've got certified professionals telling you, don't lift so heavy. Why don't you fucking listen? And look, man, I do. I do listen. I definitely feel as though I try to put myself in a position to take a back seat in a sense whenever I get to lift with some of these really big dudes. Let them lead and kind of follow, sort of, see how they go about it. And not even, some of the guys who have gotten to lift with who are just really big and fucking huge. I mean, even just anybody. Sometimes if I'm not totally sure what I want to do in terms of the next style of set or movement, or if the gym is just kind of packed, I might just go up to somebody and ask them, like, hey, what kind of bicep set do you think I should do right now? A heavy one or a light one, a squeezing one? Like, I remember I was doing buys and I like, the preacher was taken, all the cables were taken, and I go up to this one dude. He, if he's watching this, he would remember. And I was like, got any bicep curl recommendations? And he says, have you done spider curls for a little while? And I said, no. Light squeezing set, spider curls, perfect. So it's not like, look, part of this is also my own progress, cause and effect bias, which I have always said everybody pretty much has. If you work out in a specific style, or if you're a CrossFitter dude, or if you're like a calisthenics guy, or if you're a straight up bodybuilder, or whatever, however you work out and what has given you results, in your mind, it is going to kind of fucking form a little bit of a locked mentality where you're going to say, like, okay, this has worked for me in the past, so I'm probably inclined to believe that it's going to continue to work. And that's everybody. But I think the fact that that's the case is really just confirmation that whatever you fucking do is going to work. When I'm talking to, like, when I get to go to the Detroit Pro and fucking like the Arnold, these real hubs of like absolute freaks, it's impossible for me not to talk to these guys about their training styles. And I hear it in every different fucking way imaginable. Fucking 3 rest days a week, no rest days a week. Somebody like Hollingshead, dude's fucking, if you think I'm kind of strong, look up James Hollingshead. Absolute freak. And even getting into a little more historical characters, we've got more of a, we'll hear Jay Cutler talk about his 20 set workouts that he was doing. And, I'll hear some like Kevin Levrone interviews, like, the stronger I am, like, heavy weights, that's what really does it for me. And a lot of the justification is kind of bro sciencey, like, it's really just whatever fucking works. So I will admit, and not even admit, but like, I know this. Whenever I lift to the point where I hurt myself or pull something or tweak something, that is wrong. That is stupid. I am really trying my best to chill on sets where I'm pushing myself beyond the limit of safety. But at least for me, man, I mean, that's where I make my results. That's what I mean, when I'm big and strong, I'm big and strong. I'm doing actual weights. The stimulus of muscular tension is something that I do bias for at least a few of my sets. And what I mean by that is, for me to go into a chest day and to just do moderately light sets for the whole lift, or like, bench the 120s pound dumbbells for incline and try to like squeeze it on top, it just doesn't connect with me, man. And I would be inclined to believe that I think I've got a decent ability to fucking flex my muscles, like, just from doing it this long, I kind of know what does the damage to whatever muscle I'm training. And this is one point which I think is something I didn't really plan for, is whenever I make these videos and I'm talking about how I'm working out, I often kind of splice between, saying what has worked for me and what I think would work for, the general populace of lifters. Because I'd like to think that I say at least a couple of good tips, but it does they do kind of blend together, you know. So don't get too don't get bent out of shape. The only routine that I want you to do, and the only rep schemes and weight styles and number of heavy sets versus lighter sets, the only kind of routine I want you to do is the one which lets you go the hardest, the most consistently, lets you progress over time. And if your goal is fucking muscle growth, then you've got to grow. So if you're doing a routine and you're not growing, something's wrong. Something in your equation is wrong. Because if you're not making any progress for even months at a time, like even if you can tell that you haven't really changed at all now from 3 months ago, then all that means is that all the work that you've put into the gym and working out, or maybe you started tracking your diet too and making sure you get good sleep and staying hydrated, all the work that you're doing is only enough to maintain your current state. So eventually, maintenance is just inevitable. Gains are a diminishing return kind of situation. But even towards the higher end of years into lifting, you should still be able to make tangible progress in certain aspects of your fucking build. So you got to do whatever fucking works. And getting back to the weights, for me to push a really heavy set and just have a ton of tension on whatever muscle I'm training, at least for a few sets in the workout, I've got hundreds of lifts to back up the fact that it gives me a crazy pump. I feel nice and fatigued, and when I go home and eat my bulking diet, I grow. But you are right. You are right. Whenever I go so heavy that I pull something, that is fucking stupid. That's my inner ego lifter fucking coming out. So if this is the bar, if right here is the bar where on any given day exceeding this weight is too much, of course I never want to go above it. Right? For me to go into a workout and pull something it's completely counterintuitive. It's fucking stupid. But I do want to get close. Like, pushing the envelope is kind of just how I like at least a few of the heavy sets. Because if you don't push it to a point that you've never been to, then I don't know, man, you always want kind of a newer stimulus. And it's just the nature of your fucking muscles, Of course, there is a diminishing return. I'm never going to need to bench. Honestly, even like 365 is probably the most that I would ever need to go up to. But there's just the big muscle's a strong muscle, man. So if I want to get bigger, I do see that improving my strength with heavier sets is going to work. But then, if those are two really good heavy sets at the beginning of the workout, like look at the last chest day, 2 heavy ass sets of incline dumbbell, and that was the heavy set. The rest of the workout was much lighter squeezing sets, pec decks and well, I guess I did one more heavy set of Smith machine press, but that was a little bit later on. So combine some heavy sets, ran 8 reps, 10 reps to failure, with some lighter squeezing sets. Today for arms, much more on the lighter squeezing side. And as kind of plain, or not, what's the word I'm thinking of here? As simple and sort of shallow as it sounds, as long as you have a good workout, regardless of style, I think it's going to fucking stimulate your muscles. And the only thing that's going to stop you from growth is just lack of calories, man. You got to eat big to get big. The biggest guys are not the guys who necessarily train the most perfectly with the best form, or have the most perfectly optimized routine in the world, a big barrier to entry of size is just fucking appetite. So don't forget it. Don't forget it. Eat your food, get your protein in, train hard, get a pump, take a picture of it so that you can see your progress over time. I mean, I couldn't name a better fucking scenario for a lifter. So plan now is go home, chill, and well, I mean, that's pretty much it. I've got an exam on Monday I need to study for. It's probably in my best interest to do a little bit of that. But that's all I got, man. Solid arm day. Getting leaner by the, well, I mean, I guess technically, if I'm in a deficit, I'm getting leaner by the hour because I'm kind of constantly oxidizing my body fat, but leaner by the days, more like. So I'm excited for this to be over and I can really start bulking up. But then once I start bulking, I'll get to the point where, okay, I'm excited to see what I've built, and then I want to cut down. So it's kind of a constant back and forth. But that's just a little insight into my mentality there. But yeah, so I've got legs tomorrow. Make sure I get a good night's rest, and I'm sure it will consist of some Smith machine squats and hamstring curls and leg extensions and maybe hack squats. I guess you'll have to see. But that is all I got. So I'll see. Okay. I have a plan of attack for legs today. Sometimes I'll kind of just do lifts that I've done in the past, just sort of base them off that. Kind of pick exercises as they interest me in a way. Maybe not interest is the right word, but like once you've worked out for long enough and you've done so many different lifts, you do just know what you want to do next. You don't have to have it completely, perfectly written down. But today, quads especially is what I'm talking about. Hamstrings is going to be the same as normal. Seated. Well, the seated curl here was broken, so I guess we'll find out. But either seated curls or laying curls, potentially a touch of RDLs. Actually, not even potentially, definitely some RDLs. I might even do a superset into them, because if we're being honest, RDLs for me to hit legit failure is kind of a tricky thing, because I end up using glutes towards the end of it, and I mean, I don't want to be lifting the weight with my glutes. I want to do all hamstrings. So sometimes what I'll do is use either the hamstring curl as a pre-exhaust and then do a set of RDLs, or do RDLs first and then finish hamstrings off with curls. Just kind of, either or, right? It'd be like doing a set of cable flies before you do a set of Smith machine bench. In that instance, you're kind of pre-exhausting with the squeezing part of the set with the cable flies, and then burning out with pressing. Or if you did pressing first, then you're kind of weakening yourself overall, and then burning out with the squeezing. But in either case, usually it's going to go first movement a little bit lighter, second movement a little bit, first movement a little heavier, second movement a little lighter. But sometimes I do it the other way around. I did a set of leg extensions last leg day where the first 10 reps were a lightweight, and I was squeezing as hard as I could to the top, really burning out like that, and then adding, the stack and kind of burning out in a little more of a just burnout-y kind of way with sort of quick forced reps. But that's kind of what I was thinking of for today, is I want to do a little bit more, and I wouldn't even say volume per se, but for quads, before I move on to what I think is going to be Smith machine squats, probably Smith machine for sure. Before I get there, I want to really wreck my quads on leg extensions, and not with a crazy amount of weight. And not because I don't think that heavy leg extensions are good. I really do like them. But it's kind of the same logic as when I start triceps off with a set of like rope pushdowns. When your quads are, at least for me, I mean, Your experiences may vary, but when you're unpumped, I feel like that's when you can really flex the hardest. Like if I were to sit here and really try to just straighten out my tricep, really just I can contract it as hard as I could, I just can't. Because towards the end of the tricep lift, as I get more and more pumped, like if you look a little bit closer, whenever I do push downs, when I'm fresh, like the first few sets of tricep push downs, my elbows get complete extension. Same thing on the machine dips. But as I get more and more fatigued, what'll happen is like my full contraction of my tricep only goes to like so far. Just because, I mean, I would imagine my tricep's just full of fluid. It's not as, well, it's not as strong too. But the sensation of doing like a rope push down with a tricep pump and without a pump is very different. So I want to make use of that freshness on the leg extensions. And instead of starting with, pretty heavy weight, start with lighter weight, slower reps, and really kind of fight the burn, as it were. But I think after a few sets of that, my quads should get close to, well, wrecked. And then I can kind of move on to whatever else next. But that's what I really want to start with, is biasing those squeezing sets for quads. Because, and this is something I do think about, like, I don't think that training every muscle the exact same way is really your best course of action. Like I wouldn't, I'm not going to do a set of calf raises where I have so much weight that I like hit failure at 8 reps. Like that seems a little excessive to me. Usually I would do a little lighter weight, kind of burn them out. But sometimes I do heavy weight too, so it's kind of, I don't know. But sometimes I will kind of apply the same style that I do for one body part to another if I do think that it's going to be a good move. When I do biceps and hamstring curls, leg extensions too, I like doing sort of tempo half reps in a way. So let's say you're standing in front of the mirror with your dumbbell, you curl it halfway up, pause for a moment, and then you finish the rest of the curl. You go back down. Halfway up, pause it, and then you finish. Just like her, stuff like that. So if you know that you have a particularly good tricep superset that you like doing, like maybe you like squeezing on, maybe you like a lighter weight with a rope, really squeezing as hard as you can, and then immediately adding weight and switching to like a straight bar and doing heavier push downs to finish, you can kind of apply that same method to any fucking muscle group. That's what I did last leg day on the leg extensions. Light squeezing leg extensions. I'm talking only like 100 pounds on the stack, and then finishing with kind of nastier heavy ones. So kind of getting back to, I'd say one of my biggest points is, as long as you're going hard, you're definitely going to do something right. And if you're actually interested in the workouts, which you should be, then you're going to sort of pick and choose and realize like, okay, this feels really good. And I can tell I'm making decent progress doing this and this. And well, I don't really love the feeling of that. I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it, And from watching so many workout videos, I mean, either like manually like you're doing right now, or just from scrolling fucking Instagram and seeing all this shit all the time, you will just gradually get more fucking experience as a lifter. So don't fret too much about making sure everything's absolutely perfect. I'd rather you make sure that everything's absolutely intense, So I don't foresee hamstrings taking more than 30 minutes. And then we can get to the actual tricky part of the workout. Because for me, hamstring failure has never been a huge problem. Quads is where it's a little bit more, quads is a little bit trickier to train hard. So that's where I really want to put most of my effort. Not that we're going to go easy on hamstrings, of course, but you get what I'm saying. You've got your, you've got art class in period 1. You don't have to, it's decently easy. You got Calc 3 in period 2. That's where you got to lock in. But I'm sure at the end of this, I'll have a pretty nasty and potentially extra veiny leg pump. But who's to say? You know, as well prepared as I can be, sometimes you never know if you're gonna have an off day. But that's a negative mentality. You should always believe you're gonna kill it and then make it happen. So let's get started. Oh my goodness, I love it. I wish this camera was on like a, well, you're not gonna be able to see. Little cat running across the street. You can't see him. What I was about to say before I saw, a little wild kitty running around was probably approaching the halfway point of the diet. Probably nearing halfway. Considerably leaner than I was in the beginning, but not as lean as I want to start the bulk at. Because you got to remember the whole point of the dieting. I was about to say the dieting session. That doesn't sound right. The whole point of the dieting phase for me is to, fucking peel the fat off, right? The excess body fat, the tissue, the weight, which doesn't do anything good for me from the bulk. I want to get rid of that so that when I bulk again, I don't continually get, more and more and more, or higher and higher fat percentage, body fat percentage. Each bulk is kind of a similar, each bulk and cut is a similar gain and loss of body fat. But the only reason that I grow instead of just bouncing up and down weight-wise is because in the bulk phase, it's gaining muscle and fat. And the dieting phase, as long as I'm doing it reasonably well, it's mainly just losing fat. The muscle's not really peeling off yet. Which I'd say I'm probably in the clear on, because I'm not dieting that hard and I'm not dieting to get that lean. Don't get too concerned about like adipose, or no, what am I saying, adipose, about like muscle atrophy and like, literally just fucking losing your gains from dieting down. Unless you're fucking insanely lean, then don't sweat it, man. If you're in a moderate deficit combined with cardio and you're still doing your consistent weight training, then you're fucking fine. Don't sweat it. And definitely don't get discouraged by the fact that it takes a little while. Fuck, I wish I could get absolutely diced in 2 weeks. But not the case. It takes a little bit longer than that. So plan for today, back, potentially a little bit of rear delts, just for funsies at the end. But for me, I'm kind of spoiled. My shoulders are overly developed compared to everything else. Not like to the point where, I look like, I'm not fucking Frankie, right, from our favorite pirate crew, but my arms, my chest, I want those to catch up to my shoulders. So they're only a little ahead, but ahead enough to where I'm going to say, okay, let's chill out. None of this shoulder mumbo jumbo. Save shoulders for once every blue moon. So, like I've said this a million times, back, you can kind of hit it, however, as long as you're hitting it hard. I'm talking pull downs, pullovers, rows, combination of single arm, double arm stuff. Somebody commented he said specifically, for the beginner, when should I do double-sided movements and when should I do single-sided movements? So he's saying, when should I do a one-arm row versus, a double-arm row? Very good question. Very good question. Well, if you do an even mix, you're fine. You can do either. You could do all double-arm, you can do all single-arm. All single arm, I wouldn't have too much problem with, except it takes a little while. You're going to be doing your sets for twice as long, because instead of doing both sides at once, have to do one side on its own and then another side on its own. So time-wise, it may not be like, a baller fucking move. But in terms of muscular imbalances, like let's say your left lat is a touch fucking, ahead of your right one, then, if you throw some single-side set-ins, some single-sided sets in, hit failure on your right lat, the weak side, let's say you hit failure at 10 reps, then on your left side, the strong side, which is a little bit bigger, oh my goodness. When you do your set on the left side, just match the reps, even if it's not to failure, because then your weaker side will get a little bit more stimulus and be able to catch up to the stronger side. And that doesn't have to be with back. That can be fucking, you know, any muscle group. Whenever I do leg extension, single leg, my left quad is a little bit smaller than the right one. So if I hit failure at 20 reps, or, you know, I do 10 good ones and then 10 partials on the left side, then I'm going to do the same thing on the right. It's still a hard set, but I hold back just a touch so that the left one can get a little more stimulus and the right one can, I don't want to say be held back, but it'll kind of gradually balance you out. And then speaking of muscular imbalances, don't freak too much, especially if you're a beginner. I'm talking like 2 years and under. That kind of shit will just balance out. And don't forget, you're the one who's the most hypersensitive to them. If your right lat is a touch smaller than your left one, you're the one who's like, oh crap, oh my back is so asymmetrical. Oh. Whereas somebody else looking at you, they're not gonna fucking notice. You know, that's getting into some body dysmorphia type situations. So I had some single-sided stuff. Should help balance you out. But I think that's all I gotta say pre-lift. I can already feel my face tingling. Let's just throw some straps on and get started.